It was the best of times. The Lakers just got their guys in free agency, LeBron and Anthony Davis, and the Clippers, while showing some promise, were still off the map. Then Kawhi played a sick prank on the Lakers by making them think he was going to sign there and went to the other LA team. And that's not all. After finishing third in MVP voting the year before, Paul George joined the team. And then it was the worst of times. They blew a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets that got wrecked by the Lakers in the next round. Doc's out. He's blown a 3-1 lead 3 times in his career, an all-time high. Who's next to be out in LA? Hello friends, welcome to Takes in Fuego. Today we take a look at the case for trading Paul George. There are a lot of reasons to have Paul George on your roster. He is one of the best players on both ends in the entire NBA. He has a wingspan longer than Anthony Davis is tall. He shot 41% from 3 last year, and yet there's a lot of reasons for the Clippers to be mad this year too. Namely, they blew a 3-1 lead, and he scored under 20 points per game in the playoffs 7 of the 13 games. He was awful in some games, and the Oklahoma City Thunder received the entire LA Clippers roster. Okay, not quite, but they received 5 draft picks, Gallinari, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Before the playoffs happened, they were one of the 3 teams that apparently mattered. That is one of the 3 of the Lakers, Bucks, and Clippers. In the exit interviews, Paul George received heavy criticism from his teammates. Herrell told George on the court, "You're always right, nobody can tell you nothing," after Paul George had a clumsy turnover. Kawhi voiced his displeasure at not having a true point guard. No offense, Pat Bev. You know, like how he had Tony Parker in San Antonio and Kyle Lowry in Toronto. Clearly these players can set up an offense and they are elite at it. Clearly these players don't come up too often, unless you trade Paul George. There is one team who loves the long wingspan wings, switching on everything defensively, and players who can basically play a 2 through 5 if they need to. Paul George fits this mold. That team is the Boston Celtics. If they're able to pair Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Paul George, they would be a significant threat both on the offensive side of the ball, where they have 3 wings that can space the floor and shoot the 3 and function in the pick and roll game. On the defensive side of the ball, they have 3 players that can guard literally any position. If the Clippers can administer a physical with Kemba Walker or get him a knee transplant, he would be an excellent player to set up the offense for them, and by all accounts is an excellent leader and someone a team rallies around, which the Clippers don't really have in Kawhi or Paul George. If the Celtics give up Kemba, their 3 first-round picks, and maybe the Clippers want to get a little crazy and swap Lou Williams for Marcus Smart as part of the deal, you could essentially upgrade your point guard and shooting guard as part of the deal, and the Clippers would have a point guard who knows how to set up the offense. Alright, that's it. It's time to get serious. Let's bust out the big guns and trade Paul George to the Philadelphia 76ers for Ben Simmons. The 76ers have a Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, no one can shoot outside of 15 feet problem. You know who's going to hate that more than anyone? Daryl Morey, the new president of basketball operations. Let us solve this problem. Get Paul George on your team, of course. The spacing instantly gets improved without your 6'10 point guard who can't shoot, and the team as a whole likely just gels more, hopefully making for a more motivated Joel Embiid in the process. And defensively, between Paul George and Ben Simmons, they probably notice a tick going downwards, but that doesn't mean Paul George can't be the same elite defender he always has been. And on the Clippers side of things, you have Ben Simmons. The point guard Kawhi wanted so badly could deliver, far better than Patrick Beverley, no offense Patrick Beverley, and then if anything, you get better on defense too. That team just sounds better with Ben Simmons and Kawhi, opposed to Paul George and Kawhi. How about a full circle story? Chris Paul goes to the Clippers, enters contention with them, never wins. They trade him away because they don't believe in him anymore. His next team trades him away, they don't believe in him anymore. Then he comes back to the first team. Chris Paul, believe it or not, is still one of the elite point guards in the league and could set up that offense as well as anyone, as we saw on that OKC team. And then on the OKC side, look at this shit. Oh yeah, you can have Paul George, sure. Give us 5 picks and 2 of your best players. Then they flip the switch the next year. Ship Paul George back, and the Thunder got 5 picks and SGA for a 1-year rental of their superstar. In this last trade, it could perhaps work out for both teams in both major American cities. The Clippers ship Paul George to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn ships Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen to Los Angeles. If the Clippers feel strongly that Paul George is not meant long for them, they may be looking to address some of their other needs. Some ball handling guards who can create for other players, and the Montrezl Harrell gap in their roster that they now have, who is basically unplayable in those later games. So you have Dinwiddie, LeVert, guards who can set up the offense, and then you have Jarrett Allen, who's going to be your best center option on the team. You effectively have a more well-rounded out roster top to bottom if the Clippers choose this option. And then on the Brooklyn side, this should be an easy case. You have Kyrie, KD, and PG. The rest you'll figure out in free agency, and you're essentially a title contender with 3 of the top 15 players in the league. Whatever happens in LA, they will have to get cleared by the big man on top, Kawhi Leonard that is, or else they risk him leaving in free agency as well. What do you think? Should the Clippers pull the trigger on any of these deals? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more NBA trade action.